Oh, ladies and gentlemen, how we wish international politics was as simple as they think it is. Or how we wish that a single hockey team can change the destiny of the Korean Peninsula. We wish that, but that's really not true. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. As a retired sergeant on North Korean intelligence, I would first like to characterize North Korea and how North Korean politics work out when it comes to international relations between especially South Korea and North Korea and the rest of the six-party top members. And I'm also going to tell you how, upon the burden of the opposition team set up by my Prime Minister, it was never really fulfilled upon the side of the opposition. Okay, today, so what we hear from Junta is very simple. When we have a joint women's ice hockey team uniquely, we're going to have world peace, we're going to have a good economy, we're going to have a lot of talks, North Korea Kim Jong is going to denuclearize. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of assumptions taking place without really arbitration or without really much explanation coming from the leader of opposition. First of all, he talks about how, how this was a conditional terms for IOC granting Korea participation. Factually not true. The condition for IOC's granting host country status for South Korea was guaranteed viewership and also support and funding for hockey leagues within South Korea. And that can be done mutually exclusively without a joint hockey team, therefore debunks their necessity for this in the first place. And furthermore, his logic was that, okay, because the government gave him a chance to participate, it's okay for the government to do whatever they want. We don't think that's necessarily true. And furthermore, even if that were true, we think that because of the converse effects that it has on the relationship, as our Prime Minister told you, we think that rather, if that was the case, we would go with rather not participating at all. And furthermore, ladies and gentlemen, he talked about how because it's additional entry, it doesn't harm the rights of the players. We think that's also not true. Why? Because these players don't go to the Olympics hoping that, oh, I want to be on the entry. They want to participate in the Olympics and play on the hockey rink. And what this does is severely diminishes the chances of these players actually playing in the Olympics. What are they going to tell their children later on? Oh, you're an Olympics player? No, I was, but I watched on the sidelines, right? That's not something that these people want to tell to their children, okay? And we think that's also a problem. And furthermore, he talks about how this is going to increase opportunity for talks, it's going to make Kim Jong-un more amicable and likable. Okay, first of all, factually not true. No rebuttal whatsoever to the characterization coming from the Prime Minister. Why? Because first of all, North Korea doesn't open up more talks because of a single event. We've seen wars, we've seen naval battles occurring after, separated family talks. We've seen, in fact, much more nuclear development after every single potential symbolic, peace treaty happening between North and South Korea. And on top of that, we need to also correctly assess the intentions of North Korea. North Korea doesn't really care about South Korea when it comes to national security threats. The main concern of North Korea is the United States. And the main reason that they're developing nuclear weapons in the first place is as a war deterrence against Trump, who wants to bring fire and fury to the North Korea. No, thank you, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, under this context, no matter what we do, North Korea is not really going to be impressed. North Korea is not really going to change their attitude towards South Korea. Why? Because us having a joint hockey team really doesn't change the attitude of the United States or attitude of the UN sanctions upon North Korea, which is why this doesn't also guarantee benefits for South Korea and North Korea relations. No, thank you, sir. And on top of that, even if we were to bite the bullet and assume that it might result in benefits, in fact, although we deny that, we think the benefits are extremely marginal. Even if it results in more policies, even if it results in more opportunities, we think that the very chances of us going through and pulling through with these policies is going to be even slimmer under the characterization of this joint hockey team. Why? Because it's going to result in less public support as it already has for the Moon administration, and it completely debunks everything that it's been doing so far. No, thank you, Jan. And Junta also talked about how this is not a debate necessarily about whether, making better relations or talking to these North Korean governments is a good thing or a bad thing, but we don't want to limit the debate, actually. We think that's a very important part of this debate, because we think an assessment on what stance South Korea really needs to take in further security and the betterment of the Korean Peninsula is actually very important part of this debate, and we think limiting this debate shows their lack of confidence coming to this round, because they're foreigners. Okay, but ladies and gentlemen, okay, sure, go.
So what's your stance then? what should the government do in addressing North Korea? Because are we
Okay,
going
first
to
of all, we
backtrack with Moon Jae-in's policy?
Okay, first of all, we think that either way is fine, but we think that when it comes to approaching North Korea, we don't think that these kind of appeasement policies without any concrete change from coming from North Korea is a positive one. But that's the stance coming from our team. And we think that regardless of no matter what Moon Jae-in's stance is, we think that this still works against what he wants, and this also works against the benefit of the Korean Peninsula, which will be elaborated in my argumentation. Okay, so moving on to my argumentation about the issues of North Korea, about the issues of Moon administration. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what we need to realize is that we need to have a correct assessment of the status quo and what has happened as a result of this joint ice hockey team. Now, ladies and gentlemen, a recent survey by Junta Park showed that 96% of the entire population are against this policy. Furthermore, strengthening our argumentation comes from the Prime Minister that it was an undemocratic process, that it's Moon Jae-in going against the wishes of the mass public. And among the 96 who showed the highest rates of disapproval against us, the youth in their 20s and 30s, who has been, until so far, the main supporting group of Moon Jae-in administration. And what we need to see is that in the congressional elections coming up soon, what we need to realize is that when Moon Jae-in loses the support that he has, it becomes much harder for him to even promote policies that he wants with North Korea. Why? Because there's going to be less public support, there's going to be less seats coming from in parliament in the first place. And we think that regardless of the debate, whether it's good or bad, which we think is bad, it's also not going to make it easier for Moon Jae-in to come up with these stupid policies. I'm sorry, I'm a conservative. But anyway, with these stupid policies. And having said that, on top of that, we need to also realize about Moon Jae-in's coming to power, right? Moon Jae-in, under his coming to power, he promised one thing: anti-corruption, 적폐청산. That was a key principle that he promoted in his election campaign. Anti-corruption and fair processes. And we think that in this process, did we have a fair evaluation of the skills of these players and accepting North Korean players onto our team? Not really. And did we have a fair assessment of which team then is going to be the joint team? Why not the curling team? Why not the ski team? Why this ice hockey team, which amongst all teams is the biggest, smallest minority, and the weakest and the less supportive team, and the team with the least chance of winning a medal? We think that also was very arbitrary, and when these unfair, arbitrary, and random standards are in place, we think that goes against everything that Moon Jae-in has been standing for. It doesn't coexist, and we think that even when the possibility of benefits that they argue, and we think that possibilities are not good enough when the harms are extremely concrete, and even when we achieve these possibilities due to the characterization of North Korea, the benefits are going to be extremely marginal. So I still need to have the second speaker from the opposition team first tell us why then we need necessarily what used to have to be a joint sports team, and secondly they also need to tell us why then was it ice hockey as opposed to other sports, and they also need to provide more concrete harms, ladies and gentlemen, which is why I'm very proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you for the speech. I'd now like to invite the Deputy Leader of Opposition to the podium. Here.
Here.
A quick clarification coming from the opposition, right? The only
very reason why the women's ice hockey team could participate in this year's Olympics was conditioned on the government lobbying to the IOC for their participation right? So meaning the individual self-actualization and rights of these individual athletes was actually guaranteed by the South Korean government. Meaning, if that's true, we think that it's only legitimate that South Korean government and state also has some extent of interest in their own political goal in how this ice hockey team is to be constituted, right? We think that's the most important characterization. When the state was the one giving this right and opportunity, we think it's very legitimate for the state to also act in the interest for the better good, which is a regional security, and also how the state becomes a more like how the state achieves greater stability in the future, right? But before moving on to my substantive, I want to answer two main questions first. One, what is the characterization of this process? And second, what is the likelihood of North Korea backing out with their deal in the future, right? So one, what is the characterization of this process, right? We don't think that this was just like a one-time deal between South Korean and North Korean government, right? It was a conclusion that was effectively reached through a series of negotiations and talks with a North Korean counterpart, right? We tell you that it was characterized by a complex process that was implicated upon South Korean government's political tolerance and validation of North Korea. And these are exact things that the North Korean government actually desires in the status quo, right? We think that this political exchange and realigning of the political diplomacy is what actually thaws the relations between South Korea and North Korea, and also clarifies the stance coming from Moon Jae-in's government administration, because right now Kim Jong-un is not so certain with what the stance of Moon is, right? We think there's a need for that clarification of the stance, right? We think that this model is qualitatively better than their model of achieving peace through sports, right? We think that first of all, they never gave us a mechanism as to how their peace or political democracy, how political diplomacy can be better achieved on their side of the house by playing sports together. But at the end of the day, we think that sustainability falls on their part, because after the games are over, that deal is also, that sustainability is also over, right? We actually secure better long-term goals on our side of the house. But second, what is the likelihood of North Korea to actually back out from the deal later, right? We think that their presumption of North Korea's attitudes, as government described, was very shallow and very anachronistic, right? It was based on the past decade, and when North Korea was not so desperate with the survival of its regime and its actual government, right? We tell you that one, with the change of Trump administration and campaign for maximum pressure against the North Korean government, and two, increasing economic sanctions coming from China and less defense coming from China towards North Korea, and three, the internal political pressure and struggle that is going on even within the North Korean society. We think that based on all of these institutional factors, we think that there's the likelihood for North Korea to back out of this deal, to cancel all that political negotiations and diplomacy, is very little to none, right? We think that that's precisely the reason why, after this deal was met, Kim Jong-un actually offered to have a lunch with Moon Jae-in after Olympics was over, right? We think that's a very clear indication of the North Korean government opening further political negotiations and open diplomatic talks with Moon Jae-in government, and that's something that cannot be achieved on their side of the house, right? So with that clarified, I want to move on to my actual substantive note. Thank you. So coming from my speech, I'm going to tell you about the significance of the better regional security in Northeast Asia. So what is the context of Northeast Asia, right? We tell you that right now, the region is highly sensationalized based on historical incidents and geopolitical context, right? Both in the eyes of the international community and the domestic politics, the geopolitical atmosphere is very unstable and problematic, and we think this fundamentally goes against the interests of the region as a whole. We think that's the reason why, one, clarifying the stance of Moon's current administration and its unwavering preference for peaceful mechanism is very important, right? One, that it's not going to side with the maximum pressure coming from Trump administration, and two, we think this is also important because it removes that source of doubt and suspicion on the part of the North Korean government, which is the reason why North Korea is always being aggressive and initiating skirmishes against South Korea, that is sacrificing the individual lives of soldiers or whatnot, right? But second, we think this is also important because we want to lessen the regional tension, and we think this is very important. So why now and why Olympics, right? We tell you it's the timing. We think that right now we're in that specific time frame with an increasing tension of diverging interests and stances of US and China when it comes to dealing with North Korea, right? We're creating an unnecessary tension within the region with even the discussion of war. We think that this is an unnecessary tension, right? But second, we think that there's no other tool as effective as Olympics when it comes to raising international awareness and actually sending a signal. We give you many different examples like the refugee team, or how Taiwan always lobbies and tries so hard to send their individual team to to the Olympics because Olympics is the one effective tool in raising international awareness and signaling political interest, right? We think that's the reason why now and the specific unique tool Olympics, right? So now we want to utilize the Olympics to validate North Korea, the notion that the two Koreas are no longer a source of threat and tension in the region. What is the impact of my analysis here, right? Why is securing the regional security of Northeast Asia so important? We tell you that the high sensationalization of our region is being exploited by domestic politicians in South Korea and North Korea, like Japan and China or whatnot. How and why? The majority of conservative groups in South Korea and conservative parties in South Korea rely on this incredibly insidious rhetoric of creating that enemy rhetoric against North Korea, right? And North Korea also exploits this atmosphere as a fear tactic towards its own citizens to support even their regime, right? So we think that so this emboldening of the conservative group is also what makes Moon's liberal and progressive policies very difficult to actualize. We think that the harm that they characterize is not that exclusive on our side of the house, right? But what's worse is that China and Japan also exploit the sensationalized atmosphere of Northeast Asian region to embolden nationalistic sentiments within their own nations and to also create that illusion of enemy against other countries in that particular in the Northeast Asian region. We think that this not only goes against we think that not only does this actually create further political deadlock in the internal parliaments and internal congresses of these different countries in the region, in actually being able to eliminate the geopolitical tension within the region amongst the different countries, but we think that this also, second, further polarizes the region as well, right? That's the reason why we think that the signal of peace and signal of political diplomacy and the signal of stability is very important in dissolving that political tension that currently exists in the Northeast Asian region, both in the eyes of the international community and also the domestic politicians that highlight that tension and sensationalization is being exploited to their self-interest, and we think it's also in the interest of Northeast Asian to stop that, and we can do that only when we actually give off the image or that signal of peace and security within the region. What's the yardstick of today's debate, right? We think that individual rights can be sacrificed and foregone in the actual interest of the state's good and public interest. And we gave you a very clear idea what our public interest is. We want to secure the regional stability, and we also want to prevent the exploitation of the domestic politicians in furthering that political deadlock or in furthering the sensationalization of the Northeast Asian region. These are clear rules, and we also clearly win. Thank you.